Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and we're here with a very special guest, Mike Smith, and we're here to talk about mental health. So, Mike, thank you so much for being here. We've been working on this for a little while, and we've finally made it happen.
Yeah, I'm excited
to
be here.
Yeah. Mike and I actually met. We were introduced at the gym. I think it was Dwight. Maybe it was Dwight that introduced us. I don't remember.
Steve. Steve was kind of the social chairman.
Yeah. He is the gym social butterfly. He talks with everyone.
He knows everybody.
He's an awesome dude, though. Yeah, great guy. And gosh, I am honored today to have my brother from another mother, TJ Menlove, joining us today. TJ, thank you so much.
Wow, brother from another mother.
A brother from another mother.
You're welcome, man.
Yeah. And today's not the comedian show.
No, it's not. It's mental health, and that is so important to so many people's lives. I'm so excited, Mike, to really pick your brain, have our audience know more about mental health and know more about how it fits in with addiction and just all the dynamics around it.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to reach out to you, TJ. And thank you. I know you had to move your schedule around a little bit, so thank you for doing that to be here, because I know this is a topic you and I have talked about quite a few times on the golf course. And you've been on the show talking about it.
Golf creates mental health, but it does once in a while. We know that.
Well, it can. That's for sure. It can definitely mess with your head, right?
Yeah. Yes, we have seriously talked about that.
Yeah. So again, thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. So, Mike, oh my gosh, you're retired now, right?
Yes.
What the heck got you into wanting to do psychiatry? I mean, did you just wake up one day and say, this is what I want to do? Or did something happen in life where you said, you know what, I want to go out and be able to help people, or I want to understand things a little better?
Thanks, Al. That's a great question. And there have been a lot of days over the years when I've wondered about that. What prompted me to pursue this course?
Yeah.
And I've been asked that before. I went to medical school years ago and really initially had no intention of going into psychiatry. As I was going through medical school, I actually was an honors student in emergency medicine and had a big interest in doing emergency medicine. Did a fair amount of work in the emergency room as a medical student and really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the adrenaline rush that you get from that environment.
Oh, I bet.
But I thought, I considered what would be most challenging and interesting to me over the years. And my thought at the time was emergency medicine was really a rush up front. But doing that 20 years later, I think it would have been a little tedious, a little tiring.
Yeah.
And psychiatry did not have the same rush up front, but over the years you really kind of develop some ability to relate to a wide variety of people. You get to be really more expert in people rather than just parts of people. So much of medicine, people become expert in eyes or ears or kidneys or whatever.
Yeah.
And they kind of miss the whole person. And psychiatry, we need to know about those things. We need to know how the body works. We need to know physiology and drug interactions and look at EKGs and all of that stuff. But we really are looking at the whole person and their whole culture. And that really made it intriguing to me. One interesting scenario for me was years ago, a gastroenterologist asked me, why did you go into psychiatry? He was a little bit talking down to me as he said that. And I thought, no, what do you do all day long?
I'm waiting for TJ to come up with something.
You're spending your day, and, no disrespect to gastroenterologists, but they spend their day kind of looking at the wrong end of people.
Yeah. And
I really think psychiatry allows the practitioner to get to the bottom of things, even more than the gastroenterologist. So...
and
the other bottom.
The other bottom, yeah. You had to get a pung in there somewhere. And with all the rehabs that my wife went through during her depths of her addiction, I really struggled with a lot of things because I believe, and they're now, you're starting to see a shift. There really is starting to be a shift now with how they're starting to work with their students or their patients or their clients, however they say it. Some of the stuff that they spoke about with my wife, I felt in my own heart and my own gut, it was completely the wrong way. And I spoke to one of her attorneys once when he called me up and said, look, the courts are getting sick of her coming in. They're getting close to throwing her out at the point of the mountain, and I'm like, you guys are doing this shit all wrong. And that's what I even told him. I says, she needs to find a place to go where they can get inside her head and find out why she's using alcohol.
What's the triggers?
What's the
underlying result?
Because, and we've said this on the show many, many times, and TJ, I know you know this, and I'm sure you know this too, Mike, that the drugs or the alcohol or the porn or the gambling or the eating or shopping or the phone or gaming, that's just the Band-Aid. There's more going on inside to cause. I mean, all they're doing is they're just doing it to numb whatever's happening inside. And you don't see a lot of that, I think, in the recovery centers. And now like I said, there's a lot of them now that are changing their names. Instead of saying so-and-so recovery center, they're saying so-and-so health center. Because they're starting to understand a little bit that it's something happening inside here. And to be able to get inside someone's head and figure out what's going inside, what's happening, what wheels are turning, what gears are not meshing, I think is really, really huge. So I could see how you'd be intrigued on wanting to go that direction.
Right. It is very interesting. It's not simple, and I would certainly not claim to have mastered all of that.
Right, yeah.
The brain is just extremely complex, and we've made tremendous progress over the last, several decades at least, or couple of centuries. We've learned a lot about how the mind works, how the brain works, but we still have so much more to learn. And, the research is ongoing and people are learning new things all of the time. If I could just take a second and give a brief overview of how brains work.
Oh, please. Yeah, please do.
Estimates vary, but we probably have about 100 billion, give or take, neurons. And the neuron is the basic unit of our nervous system, the basic cell. So about 100 billion of those. And of those, they make on average about 10,000, as I recall, about 10,000 synaptic connections with each other. Now the synapse is where the action is in the brain. That's where thoughts can be modulated or propagated. You might think of a synapse as a light switch, which is either on or off, but unlike our light switches that we're used to, it's getting input from 10,000 other sources.
Yeah.
So that light switch is not either all on or all off. It's got a lot of stages in between. And if you add all that up, 100 billion neurons, 10,000 connections apiece, it's a pretty complex system just at that point. And then we have the supportive structures, the glial cells, that some people consider that to be almost a parallel nervous system that will enhance or detract from the underlying neurons. I think some people have looked at how Albert Einstein's brain worked, for example, and I don't know that his number of neurons was any greater than the typical really bright guy. Mm-hmm. But I think he had a very robust supportive system in his brain that really maximized what his neurons could do. So there's that issue as well. And then you consider that with all of these synapses, they have different chemicals that interact there that help to transmit a message between nerve cells. And there's not just one or two what we call neurotransmitters. There's a long list of neurotransmitters that will further complicate how the brain works. So it's really mind-boggling to think about.
Yeah.
And that's if your brain is considered healthy and no substances have been added and nothing has altered any of those things. And that, wow,
Yeah.
That's like one little thing can change so much, but what does that all change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Good
Al, you were
point.
talking about some of the solutions that people suggested before. And some people think in terms of what one of my teachers years ago called monosynaptic thinking, where there's a problem and you go through one synapse to get to the solution. someone has an alcohol problem, you remove the alcohol. That's like one synapse. But what you're suggesting now is it's much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Certainly removing the alcohol needs to be part of the equation, but it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
I think what you're referring to, Al, and I'm seeing it as well, a lot of the rehab centers, a lot of detox centers, all of the centers that are trying to help people now are really trying and focusing on more of the patient to let them feel heard, let them feel understood, let them feel safe. Because I know in my own personal thing, well, I'm sure we'll talk about that. I've got a son that was in that. He knew exactly how to bluff every psychiatrist, every
wife
therapist,
knew how to do it too.
Everything that way. So he never really got the help.
Yeah.
Because they, in their head, already had a plan, this is just all, like you're saying, just remove the alcohol. Let's just do this, let's do this. But he needed more than that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where health is going now. That's where rehab is going now. That's where they're all taking it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what I'm hearing from you is that you, as a psychiatrist, you get more into that side of it rather than just prescribing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that the way healthcare is generally, not just mental health care, but healthcare more generally, it's so clock focused. Doctors will have 5 or 10 or 15 minutes to evaluate a patient, to prescribe some kind of treatment, and to move on to the next patient. And, for a lot of patients, that maybe is adequate and takes care of the immediate problem. If they have an infection or something, you can treat it pretty quickly. But for a lot of these things that are really more complex, it really does take more time. I think it was Hippocrates who said something about many patients improve not necessarily because of the treatment that's given, but because of their trust in the doctor that is involved.
Yeah.
And, we could start talking about placebo effects and things like that, but that trust, that relationship that you have with a practitioner is important.
Well, different neurons fire off with all of that emotional trust and everything that enhance people too.
Point, yeah.
I mean, it's real. It's not an imagined response. It's a real positive response when you have that good relationship. It takes time to have that, though. Mm-hmm. And so often in healthcare, you've got MBAs and others that are, pushing, the product line and trying to get things moving and do the mass production.
The profitability of...
Yeah, and you can make a lot of money if you get on that mass production routine in healthcare, but I'm not sure you're really being the best healer in that sense if you're doing it that way.
It's something that, and again, this is just my belief, okay? I'm not saying this is how it is, but this is just how I'm seeing it. Gosh, now where the heck was I going? I was so focused on it. Gosh, now I don't remember. Apologize,
do you want to
everybody,
talk about amnesia for a minute?
Yeah, we should talk about amnesia because I had this really good area where I was going to go, and I'm like, stay focused on it, and then I say something, and then
we were talking about the emotional side of things and about them feeling heard, and he was
the relationship.
Okay. Again, it'll come back to me as soon as I stop thinking it. The neurons will come back, but it'll shuffle forward. Again, I apologize, guys, but I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about the brain and how they've learned a lot more. They got the left, they got the right, the subconscious, the consciousness and things, but science still has not figured out where memory is stored. And I didn't know that. And he's telling me a little bit about it.
Oh, it's stored in a woman's brain. I know that. I will tell you from firsthand experience. Yes, they can pull that out anytime.
Right?
It's nice to know where it is.
Yeah, it's nice to know where it is.
We just have to remember that.
Just thought I'd throw out that.
They swallow the key, so you still can't get in there to see where it's at. Yeah. But I just found that so interesting that we still don't know where memory is held. Or they don't, and it's so flippin' crazy that there's still so many things that we don't realize what the brain can do. And when you spoke about neurons, my good buddy Nicholas Smith, who was on the show a year ago, came on and he says, we do have a capability of unplugging and replugging things in. Let's unplug this because it isn't serving us, and let's plug it in here where it does serve us. And I really thought that was extremely interesting on how we can actually start changing that. We have the power.
Cleaning off the corroded end, so to speak.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's like, you jump in your car one day and it doesn't start, and you pop the hood and you look under it and you've got all this acid corrosion on it, and you clean all that up, stick it, and everything starts firing good again. It's pretty much the same way. And then, of course, when you add addiction to it, you've clogged all that shit up again with acid or whatever, the buildup, or cholesterol, we're just throwing some things out there. But yeah, the brain is such an interesting flipping tool.
Yes, it is.
And I'm glad science has come a little further in knowing things. And it seems like back in the ancient history of even the Romans and the Mayans and things, it almost seems like they even understood the brain better than what we understand it.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. I think we have more technical understanding for sure.
Right,
We have the ability
yeah.
to do PET scans and MRIs and things like that. But understanding maybe the soul a little better, I think perhaps some of the ancient cultures had a good handle on that.
Yeah.
Mike, I got a question for you along kind of some of those lines, and we'll just take it here and we'll kind of see where this goes.
Yeah, let's do it.
One of the things that I see is my children are adopted, and they have a different DNA than I do.
Yeah.
So how does DNA play into the addiction side of things, and can that be changed? And if so, what do we need to now do to help change it? I share this personal experience. I know I have an addiction gene. My uncle, unfortunately, was an alcoholic. I just don't touch it because I just know if I do, I'm an addictive personality as it is in a lot of things I do.
Good.
And so
Good to
I
know.
know that, but most people don't realize that. And so they do try and test. And as they do, it triggers that DNA gene, I think. That's just my thoughts. But I have a daughter who's adopted. She had a young birth mother that placed her for adoption. And now, unfortunately, my daughter's pregnant. And she's now preparing to place this baby for adoption. So I look at that and say, God, there's all of this history in that family as we've looked back that there's been adoption and this and that. And for generations, I'm sure that has the same effect with people that have addictions for alcohol or drugs. And how do we break that cycle? That's a loaded question, I know.
That's a good question,
That
TJ.
is a great question.
Really good.
And I think it's a really good question. I think it's important to understand that we are all pretty similar, but we're not identical. And TJ, like you're pointing out, you say you have an addiction gene. I don't know exactly where that gene is. Maybe somebody does. But I do know, reflecting back on some of my past experiences and knowledge, you can have two people and expose them to alcohol, and one person says, "Oh, that's interesting, but I could take it or leave it." That's the more typical response. The next guy is going to say, with his first exposure, that really is something that I'm going to have a hard time staying away from, and I want more of that. There really is a genetic difference. Can you break that genetic difference? Well, you can do what you've done, which is recognize that you have a vulnerability and stay away from it, which I think is really good to do. I don't know that we make genetic testing part of our approach generally, but
I think I just replaced the one addiction with maybe another addiction, though, and that's...
the other addiction is...
golf and, all the other things. It's healthy, but still, it's like, think about it, it's like, do we do that? Do we replace those things in our subconscious mindset?
There are parts of your brain that want to be satisfied. There are parts of your brain that light up when you're doing pleasurable things. And sometimes those parts of the brain are the same whether you're golfing, which is, I think, a healthy thing, although I'm still not much of a golfer myself, but I understand.
Like I said, there's a lot of mental health involved in that, too.
Yeah.
I the little bit of golfing I've done, I've seen tempers flare. I'm not sure it's...
The little bit of golfing I've done with Al, I've seen the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
But there certainly are parts of the brain that do want to be satisfied. There's the nucleus accumbens, which is part of the brain that responds to pleasure. And that can be from gambling, or it can be from opiate drug use, or it can be from doing something that's really fun and enjoyable.
Even addiction to the smartphone nowadays.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's a huge addiction.
Yeah, and I haven't studied a lot about that, but it's pretty obvious that some people, if they leave the room without their phone, they are going through withdrawal.
I'm in sweats.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's my schedule? Who do I got? Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely affects all of it. And I've said that in a couple of my public speaking events. You know, at the start, I asked people if they would just do me a favor and put their cell phones where they can't see it.
Yeah, that's tough.
And do everything that they can not to touch. And then afterwards, at the end, whether it's a half hour or an hour, I ask people, so how many of you guys thought about your checking your cell phone the whole time I was up here talking? Majority of the time, almost all the hands go up. And I use that for an example, going, well, that's what an addict goes through. You know,
that's a great analogy.
Because while they're fighting not to use,
they're still not staying engaged too.
They're not staying engaged, but that brain's still firing, going, no. You need me, right? You need me. So, yeah.
And then when you do pick it up and start texting or whatever you're doing with it,
it just fires off those neurons.
You get those neurons satisfied a little bit.
Yeah.
Get a little dopamine release in those parts of your brain.
So going back to that question, what do we need to do? What can we do? What can people that are on the other side of addiction, the supporting role, what can we do that have addicts, or what can the people who have been addicted do? What can they do now? What can they do to
break
really
the cycle?
Break the cycle and change that DNA. I say this because my daughter's now looking to place baby for adoption. We're looking at families. She's looking to break that cycle. Because we've talked so much about, I've done mental mindset mastery training for years. I've been in neuroside training. We didn't discuss that. But that's the one thing I've been trying to teach her is how to do that. And now she's really seeing it firsthand. She wants to help her daughter break that cycle, even though she's placed in with an open adoption, so that she doesn't go through what she's gone through. Yeah. How do we do that?
Well, I don't know.
In alcohol, drugs, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know that we change DNA. DNA is kind of set at that moment of conception. You've got the die is cast at that point. That doesn't mean that the course or your destination is cast and defined at that point. I think part of the answer to that is what Al's done is he's dealt with your wife's struggle with alcohol. You've educated yourself. You've learned a lot along the year or through the years about how to deal with this and how to be supportive. I think part of it, again, is understanding that we're not all the same, and what is a real struggle for her maybe isn't the same struggle for you.
Oh, yeah.
But you can inform yourself, and you can be supportive, and you can help her do those things that will help get her away from that. And with alcohol specifically, the end goal, of course, is to stay away from it and not have that ruin your life. But it does require more than just simply
stopping.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be nice if it was that simple.
Yeah.
Part of my experience, actually, as I mentioned to you, Al, is I spent a couple of years in jail providing psychiatric services there. Mm-hmm. And that was a good experience in a lot of ways for me. And I dealt with a lot of people who, a couple of days before I met with them, they were on the streets intoxicated with something. But I'd see them in jail, and a lot of these people are really good people.
Oh, yeah.
And they really, their brain starts to work better when they get away from it. And when they have that enforced sobriety, which jail can provide, they start to get some real insights and some understanding about how they need to change their life. Unfortunately, they get released. I mean, that's good, but then they get released into an environment where they are vulnerable to falling back into that trap.
Yeah. So
somehow helping people stay away from those things that trip them up, I think, is important. I don't think jail is the answer, but...
Yeah, I agree.
That goes along with saying I've taught my children for so long, and that is show me your friends and your mentors, and I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing for anybody to change is to say, which my daughter's going through now, she's all the friends she's had, all the situations she's gone through, she's starting anew with so many different... I'm the only mentor really in her life still, which is, I hope, a good mentor.
Yeah, I hope so.
But I'm the only one that's really keeping her focused. But she's got some new friends now. She's got some new support systems. She's got that. And I have to give my hat off to Al for creating this podcast, the Al Richards Other Side of Addiction, because having people stay tuned to this, having them learn from all the guests that come through can actually help someone, I feel, in that mental mindset training to say, wow, there's other options out there. I can do this and I can research. So I'm happy you're here, Mike, and I'm so excited to continue this conversation in that manner too.
Yeah, I think it's really, really good. And TJ, like what you were saying about, how can we change the DNA, or if there is possible. And I used to think the same thing, especially when my wife was definitely in the depth of her addiction, because out of all her siblings, she's the only one. And she's even said many times, why was it me? Because her dad was an addict. She's like, why did I get that gene? And that's how she was looking at it. And I've got some other good friends who have been on the show, and the way they're looking at it is they're not, like you said, Mike, you can't change your DNA. It's there. It's already there. But you can change the damn chapter. Yeah. You can flip it and read chapter 7 and go, you know what, I don't like chapter 7.
And rewrite it.
I'm just going to rewrite the son of a bitch. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've seen a lot of our guests do. They're, now they have kids, and they don't want their kids to go down the same road that they've gone down. So it's really cool to see how they've started understanding life and how they've started looking at things, and they're going, you know what, this is now what I'm going to teach my kids. Now, it's like I've always said, when I had my daughters, it's like, your mom and I, we can teach you everything we can and do our best to hope that you will grow up to be good people, and you'll have integrity, and you'll spread love. But again, we can only go so far. The rest is up to you, whether you want to do it or not. And I do believe, even with the way society is nowadays, a lot of these kids don't have a chance. I mean, really, I really do believe they don't have a chance because of the household that they're in. And they're going to fall in that trap. And I pray like crazy that they're able to get it figured out and be able to dig themselves out and start looking at life in a different way, because it's a tough one. Life is tough. I mean, we all thought life was a bitch when we were growing up, but that's because we couldn't go ride our bike or something like that. There's so much involved now.
Along line with that, I hope it's not taking us off track, but I was just hearing on KSL, on one of the radio stations here locally, about a study that was just done recently in Utah. I think it came out of the University of Utah. And it was saying that children that surround themselves with different social economic surroundings, mm-hmm. whether it's through church, whether it's through clubs, whether it's through sports, whatever, have been able to excel more, especially in Utah, than anywhere else around the country. So some of those, when we take deep Detroit, or deep in Harlem, or in New York, or in LA, or something like, there's certain areas where they can't get out of that social economic situation and they're stuck there. Yeah. And I think if we can help somehow just reach out to one and pull one and bring them into our lives and do things from a service standpoint, my belief from listening to the study is they can change their social and see it in a different way. Like you're saying, mm-hmm. they have to see it first in order to want to make that change. They have to experience it first. Like my daughter, it didn't matter what I said, she had to experience it. Yeah. And now she's like, oh my gosh, I wish I would listen to you.
They don't know what's out there. And I agree with what you're saying, TJ. We had a gentleman on the show who is with the Other Side Academy. His name's Robert. Manages one of the thrift stores here in Murray. And when he was on the show telling his story, he grew up in LA in the gangs. I mean, he was doing drugs with his parents at 5, 6, 7 years old because that's the life he knew. You went out and you caused shit. You caused trouble. You wanted people to respect you. And if not, you did something about it. And being in and out of the system, and as soon as he got out, there's someone there to take him up. And what do? They go off and they're right back into it again. And he was saying when he finally had the opportunity to go to Delancey Street, which is in California, and the Other Side Academy is ran pretty much off that same type of program. He's like, I had no clue there was this life that I'm living now was even out there. He had no clue because that's all he flippin' knew. And that's why I say I think a lot of the kids nowadays, unfortunately, are going to be stuck in that trap. And hopefully something will change to where they're going, oh my gosh, I'm going to end up just like my parents, and hopefully change their lives. Because all of us know, I think, in this room, tragedy sometimes can turn into a big blessing. I mean,
Right.
my wife's addiction, I would not ever have thought I'd
We are
be
here
where
today
I'm
because
at.
of that.
Because of that, you know, and she takes credit, and deservingly so.
Right.
Because again, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for her addiction. This was the blessing that came out of it. You know, so it's a tough world out there, and there's so much to know and so much to still understand. And I agree with what you said earlier, Mike, about I don't think jail is the savior either. We've been doing it for how long, and we still have the same problem. Now, yes, there are some, a small percentage, they deserve to flip and be there, you know, because they've done some bad things during the depths of their addiction or whatever it may be. But there's a lot of them, man, they're just hurting. They're just lost. There needs to be something different, you know, because the first time my wife got thrown in jail, she's like, I ain't going back there again.
Yeah, it's not a lot of fun.
3 weeks later, she was back. You know?
I would say, though, that some people are there and they want to be there because they know it gives them a shot at sobriety.
That's true. Yeah.
And when they're out in that environment that you're describing, they kind of know within themselves that they're vulnerable to that, and they're gonna fall. So, you know, my experience, I expected everybody to resent being in jail, but not all of them did. Some of them.
Not only that, but they have a source of structure. And many of them, I know some of my military friends come back and they're lost.
Yeah.
Because they lost
Same
that
thing.
structure.
Yeah, good
and
point.
I think, you know, the same thing with that. Some of them want to be there because there's a structure. When they get out,
There isn't. Yeah, it's gone.
what's that structure? I mean, it's on them now to create that structure. And sometimes that's hard. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly. And that's an area where I think society can do a little bit better to help people who are really striving to improve their situation, who have come, like the guy you were talking about from California. He grew up and that's all he knew until he got a little bit older and realized that life could be different. And, you know, I think when we can create as a society opportunities for people to have a different life, then we're doing a good thing.
Yeah.
It is complicated. You know, we've talked about DNA, and DNA doesn't change, but DNA is not the final determinant of our destination. It's part of the equation. But our own thoughtfulness, our own willfulness, our own environment, the people that we choose to associate with, the culture that we immerse ourselves in, all of those things can help to affect our ultimate destination and our important considerations.
Yeah.
And so if we can fortify that stuff, you know, we're not going to change DNA, but we can help elsewhere. So
I agree. And my brain talking about memory, it finally shuffled what I was going to ask earlier. When we were talking about, you know, doctors and you put it down as they're clock focused. I think as society, we have become afraid of our own feelings. You know, it's like pain. If you deal with pain, it's almost like we can't have pain. You know, we can't cry. We can't feel sad. You know, we can't be angry. And I'm starting to learn a little bit more about that where, I mean, that was one of the things for the Oxycontin that started. You know, they had the Sacklers is one that invented the little frickin' thing from 1 to 10 with the smiley face all the way down to the sad face. What's your pain level? You know, I mean, it's part of living, right? We're going to go through pain. But society has got us to where we're not allowed to do that. You have to numb it. You have to numb, or you can't show feelings, or you can't talk about what we're talking about today because it's just not right. And it needs to be talked about. You know, a gal who was on our show out of California, and I won't say her name because I don't know if she wants me to talk about her daughter on the show, but her daughter gets very sad and cries and gets very scared when it's raining and the thunder. And she made a comment to her daughter, and her daughter, I think, is 6 or 7 years old, and her daughter looked at her and says, "Mommy, just give me my time to be sad." And she was like,
wow.
Oh my gosh. So she goes, when it was happening again, they were out on their front porch, and she said, "Would you like to come up here and climb on Mommy's lap and have your sad time?" And she did. And I thought that was so flippin' cool that she shared that, because she deserves to have that time. You know, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. Why do we have to mask it with something all the flipping time?
But kudos to mom too, because she made her feel safe in the conversation process. She made her feel heard and understood, so that when that happened again, she was able to be there. And I think we need to do that with more people as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe a lot of that too is why, suicide rates has gone up for men. It's because I was brought up that way, and I'm sure you guys were too, that, the hell you crying about? I'll give you something to cry about. Buck it up. Pull your pants up. Get tough. What the hell's wrong with you? I got that stuff all the flipping time to where I was being told I cannot show my emotions. Why the hell not? Why can't we show our emotions? Why can we not have that time? Now, yes, you don't want to get stuck in it. You don't want to be there for days in and days out, because then that's when we start falling into depression and different things like that. But hell, give yourself that opportunity to be mad. Give yourself that opportunity to be sad. And, don't take your anger out on someone else. But, for me, man, that was one of the things that also really got me back into the gym, because that was my release time for what I was going through with my wife. And it wasn't enough. And the reason why it was enough, because I needed to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I held all that shit in for so long, to where I was thinking I'm going to go take my life, because I just can't frickin' deal with it any longer. And we're seeing it happen to a lot of our first responders and things like that, because they see a lot of crap we can't even imagine. They have to hold that shit in. And that is like one of the worst things I think you can do. And again, one of the many missions on this show is to get people to open up your flippin' eyes and start talking about it, because it needs to be talked about, because the more we talk about it, the more we understand. I'm learning things from TJ. I'm learning things from you just sitting here. That's why I call Thursdays my therapy session. Because seriously, it is.
Therapy Thursdays. We now
Therapy
have it.
Thursday. I like that. I'm going to have to write that down. Therapy Thursdays.
It kind of works.
Yeah, because we need to understand more, and when people can release it and get it out and not be ashamed of showing their feelings.
Let's coin it right now. Therapy Thursdays.
Thursdays.
Because the Thursday is the Thursday. It's you're thirsting. Let's let it come out.
I love it. Okay. Well, let's take a quick commercial break right now. And so guys, stay with us. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you know what to do after being in a car accident? Are the insurance companies going to take care of you? Hi, I'm attorney Rick Heaton with the Law Office of Bobby Udall. I will help you through the process and answer all of these questions. I give every single client my cell phone so they can talk to me whenever they need. Let me deal with the insurance company so you can focus on getting better from your injuries. Call me at 385-330-0226. Again, my cell phone number, 385-330-0226. Don't call the insurance company first. Call attorney Rick Heaton at 385-330-0226.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the other side of addiction with our special guest Mike Smith and our special co-host today, TJ Menlove. So guys, thank you again for being here with us. I really enjoyed the first half of the show. I mean, this was the information that was shared and the questions that was asked, I thought was just incredible. I mean, it was some really good stuff. During the break, we were talking about the happiness, of different cultures, and you brought it up, Mike, during the commercial break. And some of the things that you said, the light bulbs and the wheels were turning in my head. And I want to share this before you go on, because the way my brain works, as you guys seen earlier in the show, it could slip like that.
The hamster's running, so let it keep running.
The hamster's running, so let it go. But I had a gentleman that I know, and you probably know Oz. You know Oz. I mean, a lot of people know Oz.
Of course.
So one day Oz reaches out to me, and do you know where Oz is from? He's it's not Haiti, right?
No, it's not Haiti. It's Trinidad, I think.
Trinidad.
Yeah.
So Oz calls me up one day, and he's like, hey, we haven't seen each other for a while, and I'd like to know a little bit more about what you're doing, and would you like to meet at Top Golf? Not to golf or anything, just meet at Top Golf, and we'll sit in the restaurant. And I'm like, yeah, I'd enjoy that. So I go on, I meet Oz, and we're sitting down at a table, and we're having a couple little snacks and drinking some water and having a really good conversation. And Oz looks at me and he goes, can I ask you a very serious question and personal question? And I said, yeah, shoot. And he goes, are you wealthy? And I remember my reaction just like it was yesterday. I leaned back and I started laughing. I says, yeah, if I showed you my checking account right now, you'd know I'm not very wealthy. And I'm joking about it, And Oz, as kind of soft-spoken as he is, he reached over, and I had my hands on the table like this, and he reached over and he put his hands on top of mine. And he goes, let me tell you something. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, because I'm not. But he goes, Al, you and I, we've done a lot of networking. We've been around a lot of great people. And he says, it doesn't matter where I go into a network group, and if your name comes up, he says, I have yet to find one person that speaks ill of you. Everybody thinks very highly of you. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And he goes, that, my friend, is true wealth. And he really flippin' opened my eyes that day. I get emotional sometimes even talking about it, because it really opened my eyes going, holy shit. Wealth has nothing to do with what's in my bank account. There's so many other different forms of wealth. And during the break, when we were talking about happiness in different cultures, I mean, you can go to Mexico, you can go to Haiti, you could go to India. I mean, United States, for hell's sakes. And you can see some of the most poorest people as far as material things, living in a house with a frickin' dirt floor, just a couple blankets to cover them, not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. But you meet them, and they are some of the most happiest flippin' people you could ever meet. And I feel very lucky and fortunate and honored to, even with a lot of our guests who have been on this show, who have been in the darkest dark, eating out of dumpsters and living on the streets and selling their body for money so they can get food or get their drugs or whatever. But to see how they really look at life now, that's how all of us need to look at life, right? It's not keeping up with the Jones. It's how we feel inside.
Yeah.
So you were referring to that at break, too. Same thing, Mike. You were saying that there was a study that was done or something. And so rehash what you were saying there for a minute, too, because I want to pull this together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that money is good to have, but if we equate money and happiness, they don't correlate all that well for very long. If you are really without anything and you suddenly have a few dollars so you can buy something to eat, your level of happiness goes up a little bit at that point. And as your income continues to increase, your level of happiness increases as well. I'm reflecting on a lecture I went to probably 20 years ago, so it's a little rusty in my mind, but the concepts did impress me, that A couple of points. One is that the correlation between wealth and happiness fades after a certain level of wealth. Now, I'm not arguing against doing well. If you want to do well, if that's your goal, then go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you expect more money to necessarily make you more happy, you're likely to be a little disappointed after some point.
Yeah.
If you're going from 0 to 100,000 a year, you're going to experience some happiness as you reach that level. Going from that level to $1 million a year, I don't think increases your level of happiness very much. So that was one issue. The other thought I had, and that was brought out in this talk that I attended years ago, was the idea that opposition is a bad thing. The idea was opposition actually enhances our ability to experience pleasure. So when we go through these hard things in life, like you've gone through, Al, with talking about your experience on the other side of addiction, those kind of difficult experiences can actually enhance our ability to experience pleasure. I thought that was a profound principle.
Yeah.
If we go through life completely insulated from anything that's going to upset us or harm us or disappoint us, we're likely not to experience all that much joy. We're going to have a pretty bland life. But if we have a few setbacks, if we have a few struggles, not that I'm looking for any more than life naturally gives to me, but those struggles and disappointments do enhance our ability to experience joy.
I'm so glad he put it that way, because that is so true. Yeah. I mean, that's how I'm seeing it. It is so flippin' true. We have to go through that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to. It's
yeah,
part
we're
of life.
Not likely to avoid it. We can try, and I think getting back to substance abuse, I think abusing substances is one way to attempt to avoid some of those hard things, because you can artificially erase some of the hardships. You can take a painkiller if you're feeling pain, and I think painkillers obviously have their place.
Artificially,
yes,
temporarily.
Yeah, they do have their place.
But over the long term, just the mindset of always trying to insulate yourself from the reality of the world that's around you, it's going to be a disappointing thing. And I think drugs do that. They insulate us from reality. And part of the result of that is that we don't experience joy as much as we might.
Yeah. And I want our listeners to understand too, we're just not talking illegal drugs.
No,
we're not talking you go out on the streets and buy. And again, all of the opioids and different types of prescriptions that we get from doctors and that, there are needs for some of them. There are things
Absolutely.
that really, really help people. So again, and I've said this on our show many times, I'm not knocking them, because we do need them. They all have their place. But society has gotten also to where it's okay for me to take Valium or Xanax because my doctor prescribed it to me. Well, you're doing the same frickin' thing that the drug addict is doing when they're sticking the needle in their arm. That's how I'm seeing it. You're trying to mask the feelings, which you just talked about, and use something else to help subside that because you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just as bad.
I think with regard to Xanax and similar drugs, I think you'll find most psychiatrists are reluctant to prescribe those. They will when it's appropriate, I think. But psychiatry, the way we approach patients is a little bit different than somebody in a family practice setting might do it, or an internal medicine setting, where they really are more conscious of the clock.
Yeah.
Psychiatry, if it's done properly, which I don't know that it always is, but if it's done properly, you're going to take some time and you're going to explore other options. You're going to talk to the patient about their anxiety and different strategies for managing that anxiety and dealing with it. Medications might be part of that strategy, but you should be looking at other strategies as well.
Yeah. My wife takes an anxiety medicine. I don't know what it's called, but she has to take it. And I tell you what, when she's not on it,
you know it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, seriously, and again, that's something I don't understand. Thank goodness, I've not experienced anxiety. Now, if I had a pot of coffee, I'd probably be getting to that point. That's why I keep myself down to about 1 to 2 cups.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, again, it's something I don't understand, because it's like I used to tell my wife all the time when she was drinking, I'm like, just frickin' stop. Just stop. It's easy for me to say. And I have found myself doing the same thing when she's having an anxiety attack. What the hell's wrong with you? Just chill. Just relax. Just chill. Well, it's not that easy. So I am grateful that there is a medication for her to take to slow her back down and to get her back to where she starts realizing, oh, this really isn't that bad.
Right.
You know.
So what you're aiming for with that is to have a more normal response, for her to have a more normal response. Mm-hmm. You're not looking for her to have an abnormal response where she is just insulated from reality because of taking that medication.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you need to have some professional judgment in how to use the medications. And hopefully that's what a good doctor, a good psychiatrist can help provide.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just, again, and it's just going back to where I think a lot of people do abuse the prescription drugs, but they say it's okay because it was prescribed to them, you know. And I have an ex-wife who was, I won't say her name out of due respect in that, but she had a doctor that anytime she called, man, refill, Xanax,
Dr. Feelgood.
Refill, Dr. Feelgood, you know. I mean, she got prescribed, 30 Xanax, and 2 days later her daughter was telling me that her mom called the doctor and said that someone stole her purse, and he says, well, come on in, I'll rewrite you another prescription. I mean, 30 pills in 2 days?
Yeah.
I don't even know how she was even alive. Well, of course, I know she wasn't functioning because some of the stuff I came home to, I'm like, oh my hell.
Yeah, not good.
You know, but yeah, so I think society needs to open their eyes a little bit more on that. You know, just because a doctor prescribes it to you, if you're taking it in abundance and you're not taking it the way it's prescribed for you to take, you've got just as much problem as you do as the guy that's shooting heroin in his veins.
You know, you mentioned, I don't want to bring it down from that. However, one of the things that people even don't understand is even OTC, over-the-counter herbal stuff and all that stuff, that can be abused too. I mean, you can use it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you don't even know that it's altering you. And so you just really do need to step back and you know, analyze what the other person's doing, analyze what you're doing before you make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a reason why it says take as prescribed, right? Yeah. You know, you don't get that when you go buy cocaine or heroin or crystal meth. There's no label on it that says take as prescribed. But again, it's kind of the same thing.
It's interesting on how anxiety also creates a lot of the situations that we find people go through as they get into their addictions. Mm-hmm. You know, not feeling worthy, not feeling up to it. And we brought on social media. You know, I was saying that at break. That I think social media has created that. I have a personal experience recently, and I don't know if you want me talking about it, but it's okay. My wife, when I met her, she was a smoker, and I said, I don't do relationships with smoker. Al, you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in doing that, the whole focus was to let her know that wasn't where I was going to go. Well, she stopped smoking because she had knee surgery. She stopped smoking. She hasn't smoked for 3 years now since we've been together. But then all of a sudden her son is vaping. So she starts to try the vape. No big deal. It's just a vape. Yeah. Until I did my own research on it, and I noticed she's more anxiety now than she ever has, and she has to use it. She's now decided as of last week she's stopping it because I started sharing with her that even the vape wasn't a big deal. But they're saying 200 puff vape that you can buy, a 200 puff vape is equal to 1 pack of cigarettes. Mm.
Really?
She was buying a 3,000 puff vape.
Wow.
That's 15 packs of cigarettes. And she was like, she was wondering why she's getting more migraines and wondering why all this stuff was happening to her, which then she has to take pills for that. And so she finally had that understanding as we're talking that even the smallest thing is, vaping, it's just vape. It's not really, maybe a little nicotine, but it's even stronger in those vapes nowadays for kids. So anxiety, somehow, I think that's where I see we've got to help people understand is feel safe and not in that anxiety mode. And how do you do that? I'm not sure, doctor, but that's why you're here.
Yeah, good point.
I don't know that I have a simple solution for that, but I think living in today's world does generate a fair amount of anxiety for all of us.
Oh, hell yes. Especially what's going on now, right?
Yeah. I do think, we haven't talked about caffeine a lot, but
Again, another
It's
Another
stimulant, right?
altering stimulant. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
We can call it a drug, but it's an altering stimulant.
It's a psychoactive drug. It's used, the average consumption, I believe, last time I looked, was about 280 milligrams a day for the average adult in the U.S. So, and I'm probably referring to something from 10 years ago. So I would guess it's even more now.
More, yeah.
That's like 3 good cups of coffee. In the old days, when I used to help out with doing ECT or electroshock therapy at the university, we would use 500 milligrams of caffeine to help people have a good seizure. So caffeine is very, it's one of those things that maybe is a factor in anxiety as well. Al, you already commented
I mentioned
that you put a limit on your coffee intake because you can feel it.
Yeah, because, when I was out working at the plant manufacturing, I'd have a cup of coffee. When I got up, I'd have a cup of coffee on the way to the plant. I'd get to the plant, get things situated, go in, pour me another cup of coffee. And I started realizing that when certain things was happening out on the production lines, I would start getting real, I just really wanting to get in there. And I was starting to get on my mechanics and different things like that. And I'm like, one of my mechanics actually pointed it out to me. Like, we don't understand, why are you getting so upset? And I started thinking, gosh, I wonder if I'm having too much coffee. And once I backed it down, all that stopped. All of it stopped. Now, I still have to have my caffeine in the morning, and my youngest daughter's the same way. She has to have her Starbucks. I have my cup of coffee, little mug thing like that, and it's not all the way full. Before I go to
it's not this big.
It's not this big thing like this. Before I go to the gym, I have my 8-ounce thing of pre-workout.
Yeah.
That's my stimulant to go to the gym. And then if I don't have to go to work, which normally now I have to go to work right after, but if I come home, like on days like this, I'll have another small cup of coffee, and I'm good.
Yeah.
Or an energy drink, and I've never been much in energy drinks, but a lot of the ones nowadays that don't have all the sugar and all that crap, I've
got a Monster out in my car right now.
I can't do Monsters.
3 sips. Well, 0 sugar. I had 3 sips, and then I was done. That was enough because I can't do it either.
And I'm not here to shame anybody that's
no, but,
getting a little bit of
this
caffeine,
is the other side of addiction, and literally addiction, nicotine, all the other things are addictive.
They are
in certain ways.
Exactly right.
And part of the effect on society is when people who have had their full pot of coffee in the morning get behind me in traffic, I can tell that they've had their full cup of coffee. They're like that far behind me on my bumper and, getting all aggressive in their driving. And I think you can diagnose people who are over-caffeinated by just driving down the road and watching how they drive.
Oh, yeah.
I just do that because I think I have a visualization of being a race car driver. I don't know, but that's...
yeah. I think I'm in Indy, or not Indy, but NASCAR, because I love NASCAR. Hey, during the break, we were talking about symptoms as the illness. And I thought that was a really good topic.
Yeah, hit that a little more because I thought that was good too, but kind of give it more clarity.
I'd like to get more clarity myself on it, but it seems to me that sometimes doctors will recognize that they'll mistake a symptom for the syndrome or the real illness. I saw this a lot actually working in the emergency room where people would come in with a knife wound, and that gets diagnosed appropriately enough as the illness. But that's a symptom of the illness in my view. The real illness is the alcoholism that contributed to the knife fight that caused that wound.
Good point.
So, and I think we can look at it from a more general point of view from society. What is the illness in society that is leading to all these symptoms that show up in the terms or in the form of alcoholism or other drug abuse or increased suicide rates and other things? Yeah. I think we have societal syndromes that are going on, societal illnesses that we need to look at. We have such animosity now, such antagonism in society that it's really of concern. Regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, I think it really has a fallout effect that harms people.
It'd be
nice if we could get along.
My friend Debbie Dujanovic does a show on KSL, and they just recently had a professor from the University of Utah on talking simply about that concept. It's not about the Republicans. It's not about the Democrats. It's about if you don't, and they're talking about shootings and all that, the shooters out there. It's just, if someone feels like they're being wronged, they're going to go and do their thing. I can't remember exactly all of it, but there's so many factors that I'm seeing have come into this. I posted on my Facebook, I said, send me that thing. They have their podcast. I said, send it to me because people need to hear it. And people's response were, oh my gosh, that opened my eyes. We do need to understand our society more, and it's not just politics.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's not just religion.
Yeah.
It's a lot of other things that are dealing with that nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really have the answer for all that right now.
Yeah.
Well, why
But I'll
the
think
hell
about
not?
I'm working on it.
That's why we brought you on the show, Mike.
Bring me again. I'll give you some better
Are you
answers.
going to let
All
that
right.
check go through, or are you going to cancel the check?
I'll cancel the check.
Oh, I'm getting a check for this? Oh, that's good news. Now my level of happiness is gone.
Yeah, see, yeah, no kidding, right?
But not that much. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to level off. I don't know how much you're giving me. But
Yeah.
Enough for a Starbucks.
Yeah,
All
no,
right.
for Starbucks, yeah. Yeah, again, where are the answers for a lot of the stuff that's going on right now? You know, and it's really sad, and I don't want to get into the political stuff because this is not what we're here to do, but it seems like that our country's being divided so much, and again, we're not understanding, you know, and the reason why I bring it up that way is, and I've said many times on this show how guilty I am from going downtown and seeing someone wasted on the side of the street and basically saying in my head, or telling someone that's in the vehicle, yeah, why don't they get their shit together?
Yeah.
You know, not realizing what that person has gone through. Now I have people like that who I may at one time said that about them, seen them downtown Salt Lake. Now I understand. I mean, you don't know what anybody's going through. You have no idea. You know, and I have a problem with getting upset with drivers. And, you know, and my wife brought up the point a couple of weeks ago. She goes, so you just think everybody's supposed to drive like you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in my eyes, I'm a
Why
freaking
not?
perfect driver.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking about it, and I'm going, no, damn it, she's right. You know, and I've heard people talk about this before in different shows that I've watched or I've read it in books. You know, maybe someone's weaving in and out of traffic and, you know, and they almost hit you or whatever, and you think, you a-hole, and, you know, and they're zipping. Now I stop and think, you know what? I hope everyone's okay, because that guy or that girl's in a big hurry. You don't know. They could have got a phone call and said that their kid was just in an accident or something happened to a family. I mean, you don't know. Now, yes, there are some out there that are just asshole drivers.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many times people pulled in front of me and I've honked my horn, just let them know I'm here and I'm the one that got the finger. It's okay. Maybe they're just having a bad day. I don't know what. But,
You know, Al, this is
Yeah.
a good chance for my plug for a podcast I did a while ago.
yeah,
If you remember, my key topic was seek to understand.
yep.
Before you seek to be understood.
Yeah.
React, judge, or speak.
Yeah.
And if we,
Perfect.
going right back to that, if we would just continue to do that daily, not react, seek to understand what's going on.
Yeah,
And by the time
what's
you're seeking
happening.
to understand on that driver that's tailgating you and you've pulled over and they're going around, it's gone anyways.
Yeah.
You're never going to understand. But if you just get to that point in your mind, instead of, as I tell my children again, I keep going back to my kids because that's all I know, is you need to act, not react. You need to act logically, not react emotionally.
Well, when
And
you
all
react,
of those
where does
things.
it usually go? It makes
Not
shit
well.
worse, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
my blood pressure
Escalates
goes
it.
up.
Yeah.
You know, one thought I had as we're talking is I don't have the ultimate solution for all of this, but I do think that we live in an increasingly noisy society. Our phones are on, we're always on TV, or we're doing something, and
Stimulation, yeah. Again,
there's
stimulation.
a lot.
Yeah.
We just don't have the downtime that I think we need. And in recent years, the concept of mindfulness has come into vogue, and I think that's really a good concept of
Yeah.
just being quiet once in a while.
Gratitude and mindfulness, those are the two things I'm hearing a lot.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason for that. I think there's some substance there. I think that's really an important thing, and it doesn't really fit very well with our, you know, hard driving type A society that we live in. But I think if we could all get in the habit of not only exercising, doing the physical fitness and doing the work and doing everything we need to do to achieve, but also taking time regularly to be quiet, to step back and just observe what's going on around us, to maybe look at the wonderful universe that we're immersed in, and just kind of contemplate for a minute. Just kind of be quiet. You don't even have to have any specific answers or questions with that, but just observe the universe, the world that we live in. And I think that will help with some of this antagonism that's going on in society.
I would have to agree with what you just said, Mike, and I'm really glad that you brought it up that way, and TJ, you said that you're even starting to see a little bit. I mean, there are more and more people, and maybe it's just because of the crowd of people that I'm now have associated.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you buy a new car. All of a sudden, you see all those cars on the highway.
Yeah,
when you start focusing on gratitude and mindfulness and all the other things, you start seeing that. Wow, that's even more so out there.
It is.
And maybe that's what it is. But so, I share with our listeners and our viewers: seek that mindfulness, seek that attitude of gratitude, and see if you don't see it more yourself.
And you will. I mean, and I'm a firm believer of it because I've put myself in that realm. I mean, more and more people that I know do meditation. They do yoga. I've been doing that. I started doing yoga a while ago, and I haven't done it for some time now, but I was very grateful that I got into it because I'm hearing all this cool stuff about it. And, even doing the meditation, I do my best to... I was talking to my buddy that I work with the other day, and he goes, I end up doing about 20 minutes every morning. And I'm like, gosh, that is great. I can't wait till I get to that point. I'm maybe 5 to 7 to 8 minutes, but I've taken that baby step to quiet my mind down and to connect with the universe. Because I do believe that our brains are all connected. Everything's out there in the matter, wherever it may be. But I don't want to use that word, but to bring it all in and to quiet that mind and start looking at life and having that self-care. I'm really happy to see my mom starting to take some self-care, because she's so wound up so freaking tight, and start seeing her take some self-care. And even some of the financial woes that I've taken in the last umpteen years because of my wife's addiction and different things. And again, I'm not blaming it all on my wife because I've been a part of it as well. There's something that I started doing once a month. I started doing having a massage. And I took a lot of things out of my life so I could have money to do different things. But I told myself that is my self-care. And by golly, I'm going to do whatever it takes to hang on to it. It's once a month. I'm going to have my self-care where I can just chill and zone. And now I'm adding different things in. I wake up even a little earlier. Normally my brain still wakes me up between 5 and 5:30, but I still set my alarm for like about 5:20 to give me 10 more minutes to where I can fit something in to where I can have that quiet mode and just chill and reflect. And I'm seeing more and more people that are starting to go, you know what? It's really helping my life, and it's really changing my life because they are pausing a little bit and they're getting rid of that noise, that we hear constantly everywhere we go. And another thing that helped my wife and I too, and again, this is just us, but stop watching the frickin' news. I mean, there are some good things on the news. I'm not saying it's all bad because they do share a few good stories. And of course, we were just on the news station promoting our talk and that. Yeah. The negative stuff, though, if it doesn't benefit you, I think in a positive way, and you got to get it out of your life. I mean,
I've often, and I think you'll concur with this, because when I was in the neurotraining business for a while, it's like whatever you rehearse in your mind will come about, negatively or positively.
Yeah.
If you keep seeing it, visualizing it, rehearsing it, you're going to fit into that life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a news media that makes their money by keeping us hooked into it.
Yep.
And
another addiction.
Yeah. I think it's great to be informed.
Yeah.
But I do think stepping back and getting that perspective, however you do it, is important. And you're talking about self-care, and it makes me think of flying on an airplane, and one of the first things they tell you to do is when the cabin decompresses, which would be anxiety-provoking, I think. Mm-hmm. But when it decompresses, put the mask on yourself. You can't help somebody else if you're out of commission.
Yeah.
That's why I carry a little suitcase with a parachute in it. So when that happens, I put that on first.
You're ready to go.
Just to let people know I'm ready.
Yeah, he even has one of those little pop things that drop the mask in his car.
Yeah, TJ, maybe we should have a little chat after.
An appointment.
Yeah, an appointment, yeah.
Could be interesting.
Oh, it would be interesting, believe me.
I've enjoyed this, Mike. Thank you so much for being a guest here today.
My pleasure.
Enjoyed this.
This has been really good. We're going to stop for another quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll wrap this thing up. So stay with us, guys.
Good morning, this is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street. Or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffytown is a family-owned and operated business still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffytown stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whipped-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffytown and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account. And we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffytown can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer pre-packaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com, that's taffytown.com, to find out more about the products and services that Taffytown offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction. Again, we're here with our special guest, Mike Smith, and our special co-host, TJ Manlove. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We were just talking during the break. This has been a kick-ass show. I mean, really, all of us have enjoyed it. You touched during the break, Mike, that we hit a pretty wide plethora of different topics, I think, that we were able to come up with, and it's just really good information. And here, before we stopped for this last commercial break, we were talking about how we gotta seek to understand, like what you're saying. We don't know what everyone's going through, and this is something that's said a lot in the recovery, and I've really grabbed a hold of this. And I remember my wife was having an issue once, and she called up her sponsor, and she was talking to her sponsor about it. And when she gets off, it's up to my wife whether she wants to share whatever was talked about or not. And I don't dig, I don't pry. I let her, if she wants to, great. If not, I'm okay with it as well, because it's her journey.
Right.
But where I'm going with this is, we need to learn how to stay on our own side of the street. And they say that a lot. Stay on your own side of the street. So if TJ's giving me a bunch of shit because of the way I do something or whatever, if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. But I'm not going to go on his side of the street. I'm going to stay on my side of the street, and I'm just going to concentrate on what I need to concentrate on. And I think society needs to start doing more of that. And we touched just a little bit about it, and I think you're going to end with it. We're not all here to... I don't do this show to get other people to look at life the way that I look at it. I'm looking at life the way I feel like I need to look at it. And just because you guys look at it differently, I'm not going to dislike you because that's how you look at it, because that's how you guys look at it. What business is it of mine? It's not my job to try to convince you to be on my side of the street. And I think society has gotten to that too much, to where, oh, you like the left? Man, you're messed up in the head. You need to come on the right. Oh, you like the right? Oh, you're messed up. You need to come on the left. Or you like blue? Why the hell you like blue? You should like red. It's a better color. I mean, seriously, that's how we have become in society. Oh, you're a drug addict? You're a loser. I don't want anything to do with you. Oh, you're rich? You got your nose stuck up someone's ass. I mean, this is how society looks at everyone, really. And we're all so busy judging. We should start judging ourselves. I mean, I've got a ton of skeletons in my closet. I don't have any right to be saying anything about anyone else. And there are still skeletons that I am still working on. Because again, I'm not perfect, So with that, what would you like to share with our audience? Just something that you feel would be very beneficial for them.
That's a little bit of a challenging offer there. We have covered a lot of territory in our discussion here, and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Al.
Absolutely.
Thank you, TJ, for this. I think we do all have a lot in common. We all struggle to find our sense of where we're going in life and what life's about for us. And we all have our frustrations and our disappointments in others and in ourselves. You know, the thing I'd really like to see ultimately in society is if we could get rid of this feeling of enmity that we have, this feeling of I've got to be better than you, I've got to have more than you, I've got to, have whatever that you don't have. I think it's okay to be striving within ourselves to try to improve our lot, but we don't have to be feeling that we don't have to have this feeling of enmity or competition or resentment of other people that is such a part of society. And if I could really see some changes, I'd like to see us all be better cheerleaders for each other.
Amen.
Yeah. And not so ready to just use each other to step on and move on. But I think the idea of being cheerleaders and getting rid of that feeling of animosity or enmity or whatever you want to call it, I think that would be great if we could see that in society.
I think
make a big difference.
That is, I have to agree with that, and I'm glad that you put it that way. Some of the stuff that I've been following and reading on lately talks about spreading more love out there, and I think as we start spreading more love, it's going to change. It's going to change, because we all are. Yes, we're all going to have our differences, and sometimes we need to step back and look at somebody that maybe we're being irritated with. Is it them or is it us? And I've said this on shows before that my wife was doing something in the kitchen and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching her, and what she was doing was just irritating the living shit out of me. And I was about ready to say something to her. And my brain finally kicked in and said,
good thing.
Wait a minute. Yeah, good. It is a good thing. And it said, she's not the one that has the problem. She's doing things the way I'm the one that's having the problem. She's not doing anything wrong. I'm seeing it as wrong, but she's not doing anything wrong. And she even looked at me and she's like, what am I doing wrong? And I said, nothing. Yeah. I mean, seriously, nothing. It's just, I'm the one that's battling with whatever I was battling. So I'm glad that you said that, Mike.
Thanks.
Yeah. Do you want to touch on that at all before we sign off, TJ?
No, I think that's the biggest thing is to be a cheerleader. Quit being so judgmental.
Yeah.
I see that a lot, and I agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep, I would have to concur and add to that because, again, if we're all cheering everyone on, I think we will definitely start seeing a change. And I've been guilty of not doing that with my wife during the depths of her addiction. I never gave her credit for the 2 days she went sober or the week she went sober or the 30 days. All I saw was, okay, she's off the wagon, she's back in detox and rehab. She's off the wagon, back in, And
I think, if I can add to that, I think that's the one thing we need to focus on is find ways, just like we did with our kids when they're growing up, find ways to give them that compliment. Find ways to give them that attaboy or attagirl.
Absolutely.
Even with people in our lives that are addicts. Find that little way, just find that little accomplishment that you may not think is a big deal, but it is to them, and just give them a little compliment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One other thought I had as you're talking, John Whittier, the poet, had a little phrase that said something like, "Thee lift me, and I'll lift thee, and we'll both ascend together." And I think, to me, that describes a lot of how we need to go through life. I'm going to need to be lifted as I go through my life. And along the way, I'm going to have the opportunity to lift others, I hope. And I hope I don't drop the ball when I do that.
Yeah.
But that's how we help each other.
You've
we
seen
take
it.
Turns.
You've seen a picture I posted a few times on Facebook. It's a picture of a hot air balloon, and it says, "We rise by lifting others."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A hot air, and I love that energy that it creates. And so, thank you for bringing that energy today, Mike.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's been helpful. And Al, thanks for allowing me to come in and
absolutely
and share this time with you.
Yeah, it's been an honor and a privilege, really, to have both you guys in the studio with me today. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day and
my pleasure.
To be here. So greatly appreciate it. Guys, we also want to say thank you to all of you, all our listeners, all our supporters, all our many, many sponsors. Oh my gosh. Again, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for all you guys.
And I'd encourage those that are out there listening to be that cheerleading.
Yeah.
For even the show. Go share this with your friends and family. Let them know there is something that they can listen to that can uplift their life, that can help them in some of their spots that they may not be feeling the best in.
Yep.
And thank you, Al, for producing and creating this.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that, TJ, because we do our best. I do my best to remember at the end of the show, and so I usually don't. As you guys noticed, I had a topic and it spaced off really quick. Just kind of poof. But, like TJ was saying, guys, share this with just one friend. That's all we're asking. You don't need to share it with everybody on your Facebook page or every one of your family members, but just share it with one friend and just say, hey, do you know someone that this may help? Because you will be surprised. There are texts and emails and messages that I get all the time where people will watch a show and they will go, thank you.
I was in Sizzler not long
that.
ago. And as I was in Sizzler, I'm hearing someone talk. I'm hearing this boy talk to his mother. And he gets up and leaves. And I walked over and I said to her, I said, can I just ask a personal question? Is he in addiction recovery? She said, yes. I said, she goes, how could you tell? I said, I just felt that energy. And where it says, when he came back in and sat down, I said, hey, there's a podcast that you ought to listen to, both of you. And they both immediately picked up their phone. He grabbed his mom's phone. He downloaded it on mom's phone. He goes, that's exactly what I need. So you never know who needs to hear this. Yeah. But they will never know if you don't let them know that it's out there for them to hear this.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. So thank you. Yeah, like and subscribe, guys. It really does help us out. So again, thank you to all of you. Thank you to all our many sponsors. And we're going to end it like we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything. So.